Hello, welcome to the Performing Animal Rights series, where I talk to creative activists about their work in animal rights. This episode, I'm talking to Barbara Helen, who is a singer-songwriter. She is a committed vegan and animal rights activist, and she has performed her inspiring songs at vegan festivals nationwide, as well as activist events. She works closely with the Animal Save movement. And this discussion is a really interesting conversation about creative practice, music, bearing witness, as well as the power of music, not just in communicating ideas around animal rights, but also keeping us as activists sane. Also, stay tuned for a beautiful song by Barbara performed at the end of this podcast. And before we get going, if you do like this series, please leave a review and share with anyone that you think would get value from this. Your support would be greatly appreciated. All that's left to say is on with the episode. Hi, Barbara. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and to talk about your creative input in animal rights and your activism in animal rights. The first question I'd like to ask is kind of an origins question of what originally compelled you to write and perform songs about animal rights.
Well, I've always written songs from as far back as I can remember, just sort of, and then picked up the guitar. And so it was a way of expressing myself. I'm not a trained musician, I'm self-taught. So it was just sort of a way of expressing emotions. And over the years, I'd sort of written songs that now in retrospect seem quite naive, but at the time, it was sort of like, getting those feelings out. But it's just something I've kept doing over the years, even though you sort of tend to sometimes step away from it and the guitar goes dusty in a corner, but then you pick it up again and it's still there. And I realise how much I've missed that expression. So I think a lot of my songs before I got involved with animal rights, they were very sort of personal, very much sort of about keeping me sane, sort of through the roller coaster of life and love and loss and good and bad. And I did a CD of all my songs called An Unfamiliar Place. And one of the people who reviewed it said it's like a universal journey that we all go on. And I think that when I started, I suppose, writing songs, feeling about the animal rights, because that became almost like a muse, because it was like, prior to that, it was all personal stuff. It was all, as I say, love and things like that. And then more about the environment. And then I was vegetarian for a long time. And then 9 years ago, I sort of like got the light bulb moment, became vegan. And so the songs began sort of channeling songs about animal rights, because it was sort of like I was feeling really deep about. And it's almost like you get this knot in your stomach and it's like pick up the guitar and then it comes out and it's good to have it there and then to play around with it. And it's almost like, I've said it now, it's there, it's out. And it's just a really good feeling. So yeah, it was a progress, I suppose, because if I was a painter and I started painting landscapes and then started to see other things, then I'd sort of like paint other things. But because I'm a songwriter and a singer and involved in animal rights, that's the sort of thing that's coming up now in me, and it's another way of keeping sane, as I say. And also from going back to the universal sort of journey, I found that a lot of the songs that I'm writing, people who are either involved in animal rights or haven't thought about animal rights give me the feedback that it's sort of they've heard something that they haven't heard before, they felt something they haven't felt before. So it's sort of reaching the parts that perhaps other images or other words haven't reached. So that's why I write my songs about animal rights, I suppose.
I completely can say that I have had that feedback by listening to your songs and then going, that's how I feel, and having it legitimized and having it. And you're right, it's different from someone just going, I feel like this. You've translated it into a creative form that is accessible and processes emotions differently to just like thinking about them. Yeah, I can definitely say as an activist, by listening to your songs, there's definitely a confirmation of my emotions I didn't know needed confirming until I heard your songs. So it's interesting you say when you were starting you were a songwriter, singer-songwriter before you become animal rights, and then you felt like you were writing about yourself, and then you started writing about others instead, the non-human other, the animal. Did you feel a creative shift there, or an emotional shift? That did something change in your creative process or your feeling of creativity when you were doing that?
I suppose it was just what became uppermost in my thoughts and in my perception, and it sort of ties in with emotions. So it just became in the forethought of my mind. It's like from the moment you go to sleep to the moment from the moment you wake up to the go to sleep, it's always on my mind. It's always on. I think when you're involved in animal activism and you are vegan and living a vegan lifestyle, it's something that is always on your mind because you're always aware of it. And so instead of being so introspective about personal emotion, well, it still is personal emotions, but it's just another dimension of life, really. Sort of the environmental issues and animal rights issues all come into my writing now. And it's almost like that is become more apparent to me in my writing. And because I don't sit down and think, well, I do have a couple of times in my life, I want to write a song about A, B, or C. It's more just pick up the guitar and see what comes out and just let it flow naturally and then work on that. And so I think it's just what's there at the moment. And the well has not run dry, it's because every day I'm sort of like aware of a different angle. There's the inspiration is always out there because there's so much to sort of process and so much to say, and you realize how far you've come along on the vegan journey when I talk with people who have perhaps recently become vegan, and I think, gosh, how far, how much I've become aware, because it's just the start of the journey. That's sort of like wake up call, that wake up moment when you make all the connections, and then you open the door on a whole new universe, a vegan world that you're vegan in a non-vegan world, and so that there's so many things hitting you, sort of like from every sensory angle, smell, taste, sight, feelings, emotions, and so it's like that seems to have just become the main focus. So I'm just sort of with it at the moment, and it's been like that for the last 9 years since I've become vegan, really. And because I'm getting, I suppose, recognizing that it's something that people can relate to, and for me it's like, well, I'm doing something that's helping, to raise awareness. So it's sort of a positive thing for me. It's like, as an animal rights activist, you could wear a button badge, you could sort of like say something in a supermarket, or you could sort of wear a t-shirt, or you can stand outside slaughterhouses or do AV. Anything's good, any activism is good. But if you find your niche where you're sort of using a talent, that you can sort of advocate for animals' rights, then that feels extra special and something that I sort of have to do, because it's like, I'm going to use that, and it's something positive. So so I think I'll be continuing doing that and as long as I can, really.
Good. On behalf of many activists, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. From your journey from writing about yourself to writing about others, is there a comparison there do you feel writing about yourself and writing about non-human animals to be different, or it feels the same because it's both so personal? Is there a comparison there at all?
I suppose I can't say how an animal feels. I can have empathy, and it's like when the songs I was writing, they were my experience from myself, and perhaps sometimes seeing something in somebody else and then identifying with it. So it's about identifying with the non-human animal, and as I say, I can't sort of put myself in their shoes, sort of thing, but just putting myself in their place.
Yeah.
And it's my feelings, our human feelings, I suppose, that I'm putting over. It's my perception, really.
And just staying on that journey of, well, from when you became an animal rights activist and you started writing songs about animals, and then up to now, as you mentioned, there's this kind of journey. It's not that you turn vegan and then everything is straightforward. There's a nuance there as well. I'm quite a different animal rights activist from when I became an animal rights activist to what I am now. Do you feel a difference in the type of songs or the type of words you're choosing in your songs from the early days of writing about animal rights to now?
Yes, I suppose it's when I first became vegan, as I say, 9 years ago, it was like, yippee, I'm vegan, and almost like in a naive way, So if I just say to somebody, look, I'm vegan and this is why, that all of a sudden it'd be like a house of cards, it'll all collapse and everybody would go vegan with me, and it's not like that at all.
No.
It's so initially it was like this, I suppose my songs have got more. I don't like to write negative songs, because it would be very not easy, but sort of to paint a very bleak picture, because it is animal. When you're standing up for animals and the injustice that they endure, it's a pretty bleak, harrowing sort of images that a lot of people turn away from when they're shown that the facts and the reality on screens, like with a lot of the documentaries and things. It's like people turn away, and it's like it's sort of expressing that, but I always want to have sort of a positive hope in it, and we can do something, we can be the change. It's down to me, it's down to you, not just sort of like bleak hopelessness. So initially, I think, I felt sort of quite bleak. And then I realized that, well, the power is there within us all to do something, whether it's sort of reach up to a shelf and take the non-dairy milk instead of the dairy milk. It's there, it's being the change you want to see. With every sort of purchase you make, you're sort of like voting for the world that you want. So it's I think my songwriting's sort of developed from, oh God, isn't this awful? Why doesn't everybody see this? To more like hopefulness that things are changing, and it's down to us to make the change as individuals. So that sort of, there is that hopefulness within the songs, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think speaking as an activist, I don't know what you think about this, but I think there's definitely instilling hope in your creative practice and instilling solutions in your creative practice is a part of activism, in a way of saying, this is terrible, how do we stop this? And you encapsulate that in songs, which is really in a beautiful package, which is really great.
Well, that's that again. You put it very nice and succinctly. It is sort of like, look, isn't this horrible? But what we can make it better, and that's it's like the same with the obviously, the animal save movement and the climate save movement, and everything's hand in hand, really. And it's there's no point in saying, well, there's no, it's hopeless, otherwise everybody's just going to go out and spend up on the credit card. You've got to, as you say, there has to be hope, that we can make things different, and we can have a better world.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. One day. You mentioned the animal save movement, and you're obviously inspired a lot by that, and you've worked with them, and that's where we've met a few times outside the slaughterhouse, and it means a lot to us as activists. What drew you to that movement, to slaughterhouse vigils? What was it specifically about that action that was not appealing, but it drew you to?
Well, became vegan, and then I did hear about the animal save movement. I think it was just through social media, probably about 7 years ago, when the movement first started, and it just sort of like, this flicker of light sort of that became aware of, And then when Anita Crank got arrested with the giving water to the pigs, I think that was 2015, there was a lot of social media awareness about it, because social media became more evident in my life. When I sort of joined like the social media pages, a lot of stuff came up on that. And there was one of my Facebook friends was like Holly Merry, and she called herself Little Vegan, and she was bearing witness, and she was the first person I heard of that was bearing witness after hearing about the getting arrested because of giving water to the pigs and the court case. And she sort of was talking about a tattoo that she'd had. It was like, I see you, I hear you, I will never stop fighting for you, about bearing witness. And that sparked a song. So I wrote a song, Witness, and that was sort of like the chorus. I see you, I hear you, I will never stop fighting for you. And obviously I told her that. And from there, I've just felt drawn to bearing witness, so like, you are on my mind everywhere I go. I look into your eyes, I see you. So just from what she was talking about, bearing witness, and from reading the information, I was just drawn to it from there, really. And I thought, I need to find out where locally I can help and be involved in this. And so that's where I found out about North East Animal Save. Although it's sort of about an hour and a half away, sort of it's a manageable journey, obviously. So it took me a good few months though from contacting them and saying, oh, when do you have your saves, and thinking about going, and yes, I'm going to go, and then I don't know if I dare, and then the first night before I arrived, I just couldn't sleep, and it was a big build up to sort of going, which I think must be quite normal, because it's not just a sort of nonchalant thing you turn up to do as a whim. It's something you build up to, because you think, oh, I could never do that, I could never stand there, and you get that feedback from people. So it does take a lot of nerve to actually stand there and witness. Yeah, so that's what first drew me to it. Just I think that initial awareness, and sometimes you get these little sort of things that you're drawn to, and you're not quite sure why, but it very often leads to sort of like some pretty special stuff. It's just like if you follow it. So. And so it was down to Holly. I feel that she sort of like really opened me up into the world of bearing witness and animal save movement. And so it went from there. And the song I wrote, Witness, was on my first CD, and it was a very sort of popular song, and a lot of people could identify with it. So.
Oh, fab. Yeah, I know that feeling well. The first vigil of going there, it's so alien compared to normal life, isn't it? Of like, what am I doing today? I'm getting up earlier than usual to drive to outside a suburban sprawling place with an industrial estate attached to it, and then I'm standing there watching animals go into slaughter. And meeting new people you've never met before, or many people you never met before, and it's such a but yeah, you're right, it's so special. And then once you do it, this is kind of, it ignites something in you, for sure.
It certainly does, yeah.
Totally
It's something much deeper than it's hard to explain. That connection, I can sort of see the animals in little flashbacks, sort of they're all over, they're there. When you walk down the supermarket aisles, you get the flashbacks of the animals that you've witnessed, and it's a very special bond with the people that you witness with as well, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. There's something interesting on a side note to be said, how effective it is, but it's not graphic footage. It's not like a cube of truth where you're seeing the deed being done. You're not seeing the violence, you're seeing the preludes to the violence. But there's something, even it's the experience, isn't it? It's that witnessing, which I'd like to talk about a bit more, of your experience of bearing witness. What does bearing witness mean to you as an activist and also as a creative?
Well, as a person, bearing witness, it's very, very deep, very emotional, very, very much a connection with the animals that you're bearing witness to. They arrive, and you can hear the little hooves clattering, and be it the sheep or the pigs or the cows that arrive, and you can hear the breath, and sort of, and as they bump and and sniff the air, and something comes over you, and you just sort of like, there's almost like a calmness, and you just sort of look them in the eye, and just, just sort of, there's a connection there. You just sort of perhaps quietly say, oh, I'm so sorry, you're so beautiful, and we're sorry, we're trying. And I mean, I feel quite emotional just saying that, because you can smell them, you can hear them, you can feel the breath, and you just, I get in my mind that hopelessness. It's almost like a nightmare situation where, if you stood in a line going towards the slaughter person, and there's no turning back, it's like your worst nightmare. There's no turning back, there's no escape, you just have to keep going. It's going to be your turn, and that image goes through my mind. It's just sort of like touches all your emotions. It's all your senses. You are seeing them, you are hearing them, you are smelling them, you are, you're there with them, and as they go through the gate, there's that stillness afterwards that everybody's, that's bearing witness. Everybody's feeling the same. There's just that stillness, that moment that everybody knows that that's it. Yeah, they've gone. There's no return from that gate.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that. I know it is difficult to revisit, especially when it's such a regular thing for us as activists to go to these things, and it's always there for sure. Like you said at the beginning, it's always
on your mind. Yeah, always on your mind. Every advert you see on the telly, every poster, every shop that you pass, every supermarket aisle, everybody's basket. It's just they see a slice of bacon, you see that little pig's face. They see a pint of milk, you see the calf being shot. It's like living in a different world, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. There's a dystopian feeling to it for sure. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It sounds like quite a sensory experience that you're hearing and seeing, and really feeling an energy that's between you and the non-human animal and the activists as well. When you think about a vigil, what do you think its purpose is, as having that experience of bearing witness? What do you feel the purpose of a slaughterhouse vigil for you is? Well,
I mean, I suppose bearing witness is like the Leo Tolstoy, drawing closer to the pain, sort of instead, when you see somebody in pain, don't turn away. When you see somebody, be a human or non-human animal, draw closer to the pain, go closer to them to offer comfort. So to me, a vigil is sort of, you were there, you were sort of letting them know that you care. Animals pick up a lot more, than we can imagine, and a lot more in tune, so with feelings, and it's just being there for them, drawing closer to the pain, and through the power of social media, sharing that and letting people know that this is what I did this morning. I was there, with these animals, bearing witness with these people, and that raising awareness, but mainly, drawing closer to the pain and being there. They're not just going through the gates alone. Nobody cares. We care. We're there for you. So it's that sort of that feeling. It feels important to be there, to witness, and to share. To share what you've seen. Hopefully, to inspire others to do the same, or to plant a seed of who they are eating at the end of the day, and what they have to suffer, rather than just sort of this little package at the end of it. This was somebody, so it's a mix of things, really.
Yeah, there's definitely a power there with, and when I talk to non-vegans about what, like, a slaughterhouse vigil, like colleagues, I'll say I've just come from witnessing animals go into slaughterhouse, and they go, where's the slaughterhouse? It's just over there. And the shock of, there's a slaughterhouse near them, and that act is happening near them, is I found that quite a shock to myself, that people were shocked by that, even though it doesn't matter where the act is happening, it's still awful. But the fact that we're capturing it and saying it's right here, just down your street, there's definitely there's a powerful thing there that I've seen. That seems to be through my anecdotal experience, that seems to be really quite a powerful point to share to
Yeah, that
people
it's
who aren't that.
in a town near you, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like almost like, well, and like where we go to, it's, you wouldn't know it was a slaughterhouse really, unless we were stood outside saying this is a slaughterhouse with a great poster on it, because it's just called Linden Foods, you know, and a lot of them are, you know, processing plants, you know, they're not saying what they are, and they're well hidden for a reason, and they don't have the glass walls for a reason, you know. And you know, and the cliche, you don't take your kids to a slaughterhouse, but you take them to pick fruit, you know. I mean, there's a reason for that, you know. It's hidden from us for a jolly good reason, because you know, we aren't naturally salivating at the sight of animals being killed, you know, and butchered. It's sort of like not yummy. It's horrific, you know. You know, it's abhorrent. So that part has to be missed out in order to sort of sell the product at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And we're kind of filling that gap for sure.
That's right. But I suppose it's like, we are the glass walls, we'll bring the view to you, you know, here we are, you know, and this is like, I know you don't want to see it, but there it is, you know, that's the truth. So yeah, it's sharing the truth as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what your songs do so well, is in capturing all these emotions, like I said before, and projecting them out in such a beautiful way. When you're performing these songs and writing them and the process of creating them, what emotions and feelings, like you talked about your emotions a bit about like the thinking of the animal and their journey. Do you see things from a distance first, then approach them, or you bang in the middle of it trying to grapple with these emotions, and then, like you said, picking up the guitar and just creating stuff and then forming it after?
I suppose a prime example is I wrote a song called I Saw You after I'd been to a vigil, came home and just picked my guitar up, and the song wrote itself. And that's very often how it is. It's like something I've seen and become aware of, and then express that emotion. And as you say, you know, very often people can identify with that. So yeah, that is the process really. It's about, you know, sort of having something to say and expressing it in song, you know, because it's, for me, it seems a natural way to do that, you know, to be able to sort of like reach into that emotion and sort of share that emotion through the lyrics and the music. And it's quite interesting actually, because I did perform at a festival several years ago, and there were several animal rights stalls as well as eco stalls. So not everybody there was vegan. And I got up and sung my song called Just Like Us, and it's like, it was inspired by the chant, just like us, animals feel just like us, they have families. And at the end of it, a woman came over to me that had been on one of the sort of eco stores and said, she says, I've been here most of the weekend with, you know, there's been the animal rights stores around me. She said, and it's just sort of like, you know, I'm setting my ways sort of thing. And they were just there. She said, but that song, she said, that's just hit me. It's just all made sense, you know. And so that was just so special, because I thought, well, that's great, you know. That's just exactly what I hoped, you know, would happen if people hear these songs, you know, that it's called activism, I suppose, you know, that reach that point that, you know, you can sort of like, several seeds can be sown, you know, sort of with seeing posters and leaflets and people talking. But if you can just sort of get the emotion, because music, as we know, can really hit deep emotions. If you sort of, you've only got to look at films or documentaries. It's like when the music comes in, if you took the music out of it, it wouldn't be so hard hitting, or so, you know, a rise of emotion, you know, if the music was removed. So I think it's a very important part of our lives, you know, to have things musically expressed to us, to allow us to have an emotion with it, you know, rather than just reading a leaflet or looking at a screen. If there's the music and the melody and the voice, or the, you know, the sort of rise and fall of the music to go with the image or the words, it reaches a part of us that other things can't, you know. And that's why it's so important, I feel, you know, to get
definitely.
out songs.
When you're performing, so let's say you're doing this concert or at this festival, when you're performing live or performing for a recording. Obviously, they're very emotional songs. So how do you keep those emotions in check if you do, or do you just channel them through singing and through your playing? Or is there a certain focus on what you're feeling at the time of performing?
When I perform the songs, it's almost like you go into like a trance-like state, sort of, as the song flows, I'm very familiar with the songs before I perform them, so that I don't have to look at words or anything, it's part of you. And I do feel emotional. Like every time I sing I Saw You, I get a lump in my throat, especially at the end. And I always sort of give a little explanation of what the songs are about before I play them, so it gives people a bit of an insight into what inspired the song, because all the songs have been inspired by a personal experience. Yeah, I do feel the songs, especially in a live performance, because you feel a connection with people who you're performing the songs with, and you can feel that feedback, that emotional feedback. So yeah, it is very much, you're going through that journey. I'm not separate from the song. There is a lot of emotion in the performance as well, because it's talking about real emotion, so it's reliving that really. And each song, when I've talked a little bit about what inspired the song, I'm sort of like setting a scene for myself as well, because that's where I was when I wrote this song, and that's what it's about, and then perform the song. So there's a lot of emotion, goes into it. Yes, yeah, which I think there has to be. It can't be too glib. It's it is, because I'm singing about emotional issues. So it's not sort of So sometimes I can feel the anger or that sort of like that stirring feeling. Come on, let's get this together, or I'm unhappy with that. So it is a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And I think there's an inner activist there as well. Oh yeah, you're right. It's I need to get this out. I need this. This is such a powerful feeling, and it's such an important topic that this needs to be performed and connected with as many people. It's interesting just talking to you about how your creative practice covers not just about communicating the message of animal rights to people who are listening, but also you at the beginning talk about your sanity as well, but it's also helping with other activist sanity. So there's this kind of, it's not just about getting the message out, it's also keeping us going and inspiring us, and kind of keeping us sane, and expressing our emotions in a way that validates them, which is really interesting. Because when I talk about creativity in artivism and things like that, there's this kind of thinking, well, it's just about getting the message across in a lovely way, in an attractive, creative way. But there's so much depth to that, isn't there? It's not just about the audience, it's also about us as creatives. It's also about our community of activists around us, and it's also about the non-human animal that we're talking about. So it's really powerful to hear you talk about all this different.
Like depression is a huge part of I always feel that when you're vegan, it's like you've gone into a grieving process. And I wrote a song about that. It's called Grief Remains, because it's like you are in a constant grieving process. You're angry, you get depressed, and it's like just keep going around in a circle. And it's hard emotionally witnessing these things and becoming aware of these things. Ignorance is bliss, So yeah, it is a way of keeping sane, because you can find yourself in a very dark place because you're seeing things that other people are sort of like blinkered to, and there is that. Definitely.
Yeah. Lovely. And so I suppose the last question it's quite a broad question and an ambitious question, but what role does creative practice have in the animal rights movement?
It fits in really well. I think there's so many places, so many ways of becoming active, and I think it's just one way that slots in really nicely with everything else. It's just a part of the whole. Without it, very lopsided. As I say, I think it's going to reach emotions in people. The other parts, everything is equally important. I feel, all the different roles are equally important, and one complements another, and it's just part of it, because it's part of the human condition, isn't it? It's like what we respond to as people on all different levels: sight, sound, hearing, smell, music, the whole thing. It's like words, everything goes into sort of getting a message across. And I think it's a really important way of trying to help people to open their eyes to see what's going on around them, to make the world a better place and for the animals, and to stop this injustice of speciesism, and for animals to become equals. We are all animals, we are all earthlings, we are all interactive, and we all in balance with everything has its place. And so I feel that that's part of it, that arts in the music and in animal rights activism plays a huge part, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. It's
has that answered that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think your work, your songwriting, and your songs just reflect that perfectly, and play such a vital role in speaking personally in my activism. There's such a inspiration. So I really appreciate all the work you do and all the activism you do, and your passion is just inspiring. Are you okay performing one of your songs?
Yeah, I would love to. I just happen to have a guitar here.
No, that's handy.
Like I said earlier. Well, this song I'll play for you is called excuse me. Yeah, because I've just got this is a new CD, hot off the press, and it's called One Voice. And initially it was going to be called Vegan Family. However, I was asked to write a song for Regan Russell, the activist, that was tragically killed outside of a slaughterhouse in Toronto. And it would be the first anniversary was coming up, and I was asked by Anita and the team to write a song for Regan, which I did, and it was called One Voice. And so the album became called One Voice. But another song that I was also asked if I would write was about they wanted a song to play outside of a slaughterhouse where people were complaining that we don't want this in our backyard. It was affecting the community, and the activists were standing outside and saying, look, this is a slaughterhouse, and these horrible things are happening here. And the community people were coming over and saying, oh yeah, we don't like this, not in our backyard. And so there were so many elements went into it. And they said, would you write a song that could be played out, while we're bearing witness, to sort of like try and sort of like capture the ears of the locals as well. So it's sort of like all combined into this song. So it's called Live Kindly, Tread Lightly, Live Vegan. When you look at the world through an animal's eyes, what do you see as you stand up for your rights, saying not in my backyard? We witness for justice and liberty. Your food should be grown, never be born. Death is not a harvest. Your food should be grown. Leave the animals alone. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. We are all animals. We are all earthlings. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. We are all animals. We are all earthlings. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. We have only one earth. This is our home. One world that we all share. The ripples are spreading. We've thrown the stone. pollution of my water down there. As we view the scene of climate change, the smell of death is in the air. Peace on this earth begins on your plate. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. We are all animals, we are all earthlings. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. We are all animals, we are all earthlings. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. What are we gonna do about it? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do about it? What are we gonna do? Time to stop the climate clock and start anew. We have the power. Now is the hour. When you look at the world through an animal's eyes, what do you see? As you stand up for your rights, saying not in my backyard, we witness for justice and liberty. Your food should be grown, never be born. Death is not a harvest. Your food should be grown. Leave the animals alone. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. We are all animals, we are all earthlings. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. We are all animals, we are all earthlings. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan. Live kindly, tread lightly, live vegan.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful.
Oh,
Thank you so much for performing that. That was really touching and just so poetic as well. It was lovely, yeah. Thank you, Barbara, for joining me today. And thank you, the listener, for listening. If you find value in this podcast, this series, please leave a review, which will really help reach more people. Share, follow, subscribe, download. It'll really help reach the people who are looking for this kind of thing. There's many more episodes to come, so sit tight. But in the meantime, take care and goodbye.